So we've got a lot to talk about here with the New York Jets. They've been in the media a lot here. First of all, that intro though was amazing, and the timing, all of that. It's almost like I'm a producer in real life for a job. So, first of all, Stan, I don't know what you want to talk about first here with the New York Jets. I'll let you pick because you guys have been all over the news. Obviously, the big news today is Robert Saleh, but we can go whichever way you want.
So this is going to sound false, but I promise this is true. I woke up at like 4 a.m. this morning, left my house 4:30 to 5 in that range, had to get on a train to get on another train to get on another train to get to the airport. Left my flight, left at like 8:30, and I was up that entire time, super early, super kind of dazed all day. But when I was on the train going through New York City, right, I was seeing Queens, I was seeing Manhattan, I was looking at the beauty around me. Arrived in Grand Central Terminal, the most iconic terminal in the world. Looked at the ceiling, saw the paintings of the constellations, and I thought, this city is so awesome. But my favorite football team is not awesome. And I thought more and more about that. Like every team from New York is so iconic. You have you have the Giants, right? So many victories, so many trophies, so many iconic players, right? You have the Yankees, but for some reason the New York Jets just can't make anything work. And it goes on this thought I've been having over the course of the last week or two, something I discussed, I know, with you, Josh, which is that my worry with the Jets right now is that keeping Robert Saleh too long would take away all that we have going for us because we do have a good roster, right? Something is going wrong, obviously, and we'll get into that soon. But we have a good roster, and somehow we are not playing well, right? The last two games we should have won, and we lost them. Pretty bad losses, too. So I think Robert Saleh getting fired, as much as I was a fan of Robert Saleh over the course of the last few years, right? It was only really that Black Friday game with the multiple pick sixes and all that I began to go against Robert Saleh. And going into this season, my mentality was we have Aaron Rodgers, we have a much better O-line, we have much better threats. We should be good with Robert Saleh. And I thought Robert Saleh can take us into the playoffs. And my thinking was if we get into the playoffs with Robert Saleh, which we haven't done in so long, I think he should stay. But after seeing the last couple of weeks and really his attitude over the last few years, it's felt to me like this had to have happened. I didn't think it was going to because I think Woody Johnson and the Jets ownership can be a little bit late to getting things done. But I applaud them for getting this done early rather than waiting for the last minute.
So you mentioned that you were kind of like you've been a fan of Robert Saleh in the past. You've definitely had your critiques of him, but were you surprised at all that they did this now? I know you said it is probably necessary and that Woody Johnson. Something that shocked me was this is the first time in the Woody Johnson era of New York Jets football that you guys have switched coaches in the middle of the season. So did it shock you at all to be like right now, this is the time?
Oh, 100%. And really the reason I was so upset going into really after the last two games was because I thought we had all of this going for us and we were going to let a bad coach who has not been a good leader. Let's be frank, at least recently in memory, and hasn't been able to be a good leader on or off the field, to be clear. I thought we were going to let that stop us from getting anything accomplished. And I'm really happy that Woody Johnson, got himself together and got rid of Robert Saleh. And I do like Saleh. I think Saleh's going to be a great defensive coordinator somewhere in the NFL, but I just don't think he's a head coach. And at the end of the day, I was happy enough with just getting into the playoffs this season. That's all I really wanted. But now even that doesn't look to be very realistic. I think the odds right now are something like 20-30%. So if this decision was going to be going to happen this season, I am so happy it happened right now rather than waiting 4 more weeks into the year when we have a 5-game losing streak or a bigger hole to climb get out of.
Just, you have a question?
What? No, I Oh, you thought I raised my hand? No, I mean, if anything, it kind of reminds me of like Arthur Smith when it goes to the head coach conversation, just because like Arthur Smith was not able to coach that Atlanta Falcons team. He just did things so weird and different down in Atlanta that obviously it appears that they may be fixing now. I mean, they're still not in the perfect spot that I would say for Atlanta's liking, but I think some head coaches and some coaches in the NFL just learn that they're just better as coordinators. And it's just how it is. I mean, I know you make the big bucks when you're a coach, but sometimes you kind of have to just accept the fact that your coordinating is where you are an expert in. And unfortunately, luckily, the Jets figured that out a little sooner than later, as you mentioned, Stan, because there's still not. I mean, I know you said that there's only like a 30-40% chance of playoffs, maybe even lower than that. I still don't think that your chances are completely shot. So I wouldn't give up hope yet, especially for any other Jets fans out there that are listening in. I'd keep the hope alive.
And it's not like the New York Jets have been awful. Like they on offense. What's weird is Robert Saleh is a defensive coach, and the defense, if anything, was the strength of the Jets. So there's this rumor going around that I've seen that CBS posted that Robert Saleh was getting ready to fire Nathaniel Hackett, the offensive coordinator for the Jets. Which I think you would have been a fan of that move. Now, obviously, Aaron Rodgers and Nathaniel Hackett have some connections, so who knows how that would have gone with Aaron. But then all of a sudden, Woody Johnson is like, no, you're out. So now, and I don't think this will happen, but Nathaniel Hackett is listed as a potential future head coach of the New York Jets, which I don't think Stan wants at all. Currently, the interim head coach is your defensive coordinator, Jeff Ulbrich. So, I mean, you've got something to work with here. But, Stan, what are your thoughts on the idea, if this rumor is true, that Nathaniel Hackett was potentially on his way out, and now Robert Saleh is the one who saw the door? Escorted out by security, by the way.
Yeah, my biggest issue with Saleh outside of his in-game decisions has been his ability to blame someone for everything and never take responsibility. So, for example, I think it was like his first, or the season of Zach Wilson, right? Zach Wilson's second season, we had LaFleur as the OC, and LaFleur was actually doing a great job. If anyone, I mean, I know you were watching the Jets shots that year. And LaFleur was calling up good plays. He was using our receivers very well, right? He was making the best out of the receivers we had. We didn't have very good receivers. And you look at LaFleur now, he's doing great things, right? But for some reason, Saleh put all the blame on LaFleur, got rid of him, and then brought in Nathaniel Hackett as the solution to that, of all the possible people to bring in. And then every season, if you look at Robert Saleh, there's just always this big amount of scapegoating. He always blames someone else. So the Hackett thing makes sense. I mean, as you mentioned, I'm fine with Hackett being gone. I don't want Hackett to be with the Jets. For me, though, if Hackett is somehow able to bring the best out of Rodgers, which that is allegedly what's going on, then I'm happy with it. But we still need some sort of play caller. Obviously, Ulbrich is not going to be the play caller. We know he's not the play caller. Saleh was barely the play caller. So I don't know what the plan is on offense there. That's my biggest worry moving forward. But at the very least, it gives the team, like the players, a bit of a chance to kind of reassess. And since we're so early into the season, that gives us something to build off of. And that was another thing with Saleh. I think every single loss he's had this season, the first excuse he gives, if you look at his press conferences, is, "Oh, well, we're so early in the season. It really doesn't matter." I'm like, we have plenty of time to turn this around. Well, yeah, Robert Saleh, we did turn it around, and we got rid of you. But no, I mean, I think it is important for the team to try to turn things around right now, as Saleh has been pointing out after every loss. But I just think the scapegoating and the inability to take responsibility made Saleh a bit of a liability in terms of leadership. And it made the players, if you were a player on that team, imagine how that makes you feel, right? Saleh even blamed Rodgers in like 2 or 3 of the press conferences. I think he was direct in 2 of those at least. He directly blamed Rodgers. you're a Hall of Fame quarterback for the lawsuit. So there's definitely a bit of a scapegoating issue there. And as I just said, it doesn't help the locker room. It doesn't help the team at all.
So I want to clarify this because this is crazy to me if true. Robert Saleh was your offensive play caller?
I actually don't know who's been play calling through the most recent parts of the season, but at times of last season and early this season, Saleh has been the play caller.
That's crazy to me because he's a defensive-minded coach.
Yeah, Saleh it was if you remember the Black Friday game from last year, after that, Saleh has been at least allegedly being the primary play caller. This offseason, Saleh's big thing was having a big part of the offense. He was bragging about being in every meeting for the offensive staff. So allegedly he's trying to say he's able to work an offense now. Obviously, that hasn't really happened last year or this year, regardless of where he is on that spectrum of play calling, but it's not working.
I mean, obviously, your like offense and defense, you need to understand both to be a good coach, but that's insane to me that he was calling the offense. What was Nathaniel Hackett doing then? Other than like making plays for Aaron Rodgers to audible out of?
Cheerleader. He's a cheerleader.
Well, someone has to like tell the water boys where to go, and then Hackett's doing a great job of that. I think our water boys have been on top of their game this year.
Yeah, I feel like most of your players have been very hydrated, and I think that's always really good for a NFL team to thrive, especially under
very
the
hydrated.
Conditions. Yeah, they've been very hydrated.
There was actually while the Minnesota Vikings game, the water boys went on to the field too early.
Oh, okay, all right, then their grade, their PFF grade goes down a couple. Yeah. I'm disappointed in those water boys.
It wasn't well played, but they thought there was a timeout where there was no timeout.
Oh,
it's Nathaniel Hackett's fault specifically.
Yeah, but I think if I could guide this conversation, I think the last question we need to answer is who is the next head coach of the New York Jets? I have a take. Do you guys have anything about that?
I've been seeing some people saying return of Bill Belichick.
Yeah, Billy B. I don't really have an opinion right now. I mean, it's just always crazy just because like right in the middle of the season like this, especially going into like a week 6, you're always kind of like, well, we don't even know what coaches are available or what coordinators are available or who's still even out there. But so I don't really have an opinion at this moment, but I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Stan, especially like, since you're very deeply rooted into the Jets. And probably would have strong feelings towards one candidate and maybe strong dislike towards another. So what do you think, Stan? Who are you thinking?
Well, I mean, for one, I think the idea of a guy like Belichick makes sense because we need someone established. I think just to be able to bring this team together at this point of the season, you need someone who's been around the NFL. Now, Belichick, I don't think he's going to join the Jets. I just don't see that happening. I assume he's still friends with every single person in the Patriots staff. So I would find that kind of weird if that did happen. But if Belichick came, I would be supportive of that. I really just want someone who's had experience, especially on the offensive side of things. Belichick is obviously not a very offensive coach, but he would understand it better than I think anyone on our staff right now. But here's my take. Here's who I'm pointing at, right? Who is a not working for any or not a coach for any team right now. Hall of Fame head coach could come to the Jets. Has been with the Jets before. Any names ringing? Any names come to mind?
Bill Belichick.
Pete Carroll.
I thought it was Pete Carroll. I thought.
You mean he's teaching at USC right now.
Well, how do you have that up already?
I'm good, man. I'm a good producer.
I don't think I've texted you anything about Pete Carroll, but I mean, moving on that point, here's why Pete Carroll might be the best candidate for the Jets right now, because he is a defensive head coach, and I think that leaves a little bit of continuity. Right, it allows because our best players are on defense, so he would understand how to use them well. But also his systems are very similar to what the Jets have run defensively. He's always had good pressure rates, which is something the Jets need to bring up and need to improve at this point of the season, especially with the amount of injuries we've had on the D-line. But I think what Pete Carroll does most of all is, even though he was, again, another defensive head coach, right? He was, and while he wasn't the play caller for Seattle, according to everything he's talked about, especially after the Marshawn Lynch play, he did say he was to some extent responsible for every single play on offense. He said at times he did give direct recommendations or direct orders to the play callers to do X, Y, and Z, to pull this type of play, this type of set. And while, yeah, he may not be able to call the exact play for the Jets, I think there could be a system where he could say, okay, well, we need this sort of attack, and he and Rodgers can work it out there. So I think Pete Carroll makes a lot of sense to me. Pete Carroll, the other thing is, obviously he knows how to get into the playoffs, right? And he knows how to win in the playoffs too, of course. He knows how to win a Super Bowl as well. But he also knows how to get into the playoffs. He knows how to get through those grueling mid-season games, where you have 4, 5, 10 injuries. And the Jets are a team that have never been good at that, at least not since Rex Ryan. So I think Pete Carroll brings, he's going to be a very well-respected guy in the locker room from day one. And because of his experience, I think he could be someone who could bring us into the playoffs and give us some sort of push. And one final thought on that is, I don't know whether Pete Carroll has any interest in coming to the Jets, but I would think, because of how much time he's been a head coach and now stepping away from it, I think the idea of leading a team through the end of a season without any sort of long-term commitment might be attractive to him, because he's not saying, oh, I'm going to be your head coach for 2-3 years. I think there could be a situation where Pete Carroll says, I'll coach you through this season, and at the once we get out in the wild card round or whatever the end of the season looks like, we'll figure out what the future is.
Yeah, I think you bring up a lot of good points. Plus, I mean, obviously Pete Carroll's older, and that could be a reason he didn't want to go through like a rebuild with the Seahawks. But Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be with the Jets long term either.